We have some long tenured employees. Fortunately, all my new hires are word of mouth. I've basically never hired anyone online. All my people are word of mouth. I think you need to keep up to date with technology, machinery, keep them motivated. Clean facility, organized facility, so they have a motivation to stay on. We've never been too aggressive on hiring online, I guess, to start. I mean, when I'm looking for new people, I put the word out to different sales individuals who sell material, tooling, etc. So they always keep an ear out for me. They've seen the facility, the type of work we do, and seems to work out.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Colbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Colbert, and I am excited to introduce today's guest. He enables his customers to boost productivity and shorten turnaround times through high-precision manufacturing solutions. He is committed to continuous improvement with his company operating within an ISO 9001 and lean manufacturing framework. He collaborates with a variety of industries such as energy, defense, and robotics, to name a few. He is the president and owner of Quick Manufacturing Company in Danvers, Massachusetts. Yianni Manolakos, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jay. Appreciate it.
Of course. Pleasure's mine. I'm so glad you could take the time and invest a little of your experience with us today.
Absolutely.
So, Yianni, we go back. I was trying to think about it last night. I think, almost 10 years now we've known each other?
I would say 9? At least 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So
probably late 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere around maybe 2012, I think. Maybe. But yeah, it's needless to say, it's been a while and it's been a pleasure knowing you. So
thank you.
And working with you too. So because we go back so far, I'm going to ask you this, Yianni. As the president and owner of a manufacturing company with high demand every day, what's been your biggest lesson learned through your experience, through your time?
I mean, throughout my time, I would have to say the biggest lesson learned is you need a solid team around you to be able to get things done. It's all about the team. You need high quality people. Can't really grow the business without a team. You can only do so much on your own.
Very true.
So I would have to say, I mean, your team is basically the highest priority and the most important thing of my business, in my business.
And I would agree, Yianni. What have you done through the years? A couple of, call it best practices or things that you've done to get the right team in place, find the right people, keep them, train them.
Sure. So we have some long tenured employees. Fortunately, all my new hires are word of mouth. I've basically never hired anyone online. All my people are word of mouth. And I think you need to keep up to date with technology, machinery, keep them motivated. Clean facility, organized facility, so they have a motivation to stay on.
Sure. Now that's a pretty impressive fact that all of your hires or your new people are word of mouth, because that's very rare. I would say that speaks to your culture and everything you just said about having a good work environment. Can you elaborate on that? Why do you think it's word of mouth only? It's very unique.
I'm not really sure. We've never been too aggressive on hiring online, I guess, to start. I mean, when I'm looking for new people, I put the word out to different sales individuals who sell material, tooling, etc. So they always keep an ear out for me. And they've seen the facility, the type of work we do, and seems to work out.
Good for you. I think it speaks volumes about you and how you run the business. And it is a nice, clean facility, and it's well run. And you mentioned technology and equipment. How do you get new hires or everyone trained up or constantly up to speed on new technologies and new equipment and new processes?
So we buy the same manufacturer of machinery, Mazak machines. They're made in Japanese company, made in Japan, made in Kentucky. So that my team can go from machine to machine because it has all the same controls. There's not much of a learning curve. Same type of maintenance on the machinery. So we kind of standardize the manufacturer of the machines to make things a lot easier.
So does the manufacturer send a team out to train on new equipment, or how does that happen?
Yes, when needed, but a lot of training is not needed now because we know the machinery, we know the controls. So initially they could come in for half day for a light type of training.
Is having the same manufacturer of machines common? I actually hadn't noticed that.
For some manufacturers, it is. I know some shops, they have a variety of different manufacturings of machinery, but it's all what you get into. Because Mazak, what we buy, I mean, there's a long line of the types of machines they sell. So they basically have everything we would ever need.
And it serves all the industries that we mentioned earlier, regardless
Yes.
of, okay. That's great. That does seem like a great business practice to keep the same manufacturer. Well, that actually rolls into another question I had for you, just around communication. So let's start with Mazak. Communication with them. What happens when something doesn't go right, or you need a part, or something needs repair? How's communication with your equipment supplier?
Seems to be excellent. I mean, if we need parts, we email their parts. They have multi-million-dollar inventory down in Kentucky. So there's fast turnarounds. I've never really run into an issue that we were waiting for components of any kind. It seems to be working well. I've never had a real issue.
That's great. It's excellent.
And there's very good phone service. So if there's an issue, get them on the phone. They can kind of walk you through.
That's what I was wondering, like support. So mainly through the phone, and that's how so when something goes wrong, that's how they're supporting you, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What about other vendors or other suppliers? And I'm asking, Yianni, because you and I have both seen through the years how it can be challenging if communication breaks down, whether it's, a supplier, a vendor, a contractor, anyone. Just on the note of communication with Mazak, clearly it's working. Are there any other successes or challenges with other industrial suppliers or support?
I try to keep my suppliers who I buy material from and who do the outside processing, such as painting, powder coating, anodizing, etc. I try to keep a small group of suppliers that I deal with. I don't really go out and get several different quotations. I stick to 2-3 different companies for those. It just makes things a lot easier. You build a better relationship.
I would agree. I would say relationships probably the most important thing, because then everyone's more vested, more vested in success for both parties or all parties. I'm going to jump over to, we talked ISO and OSHA I want to
Yes.
come back to communication, but with ISO and OSHA, could you talk a little bit about your ISO certification and how you stay up to speed, audit ready, call it, anything around that?
So basically now we're in the process of renewing ISO. Um, we try for the most part to stay on top of things regarding ISO, regarding calibration of instruments, paperwork with job travelers. So we kind of stay on top of things. So when there is an audit, we're not scrambling.
How do you do it? That's the thing. And I know you're very tight with your business and very ahead of things. That's why I'm asking you this question, Yianni, because is it you personally, is there a lead in the building that stays ahead of these things?
I think as a collective group, everyone kind of has to do their part.
Hmm.
Uh, I believe it has to do with a lot with just being organized. For the most part, you have to be organized. Everything has its place, has to be in its place. Um, I have a quality team that really deals with most of that part of it,
Hmm.
but it seems to go fairly smooth.
Um, so lean manufacturing is all about organizing and processes, right?
Yes, key.
So,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, that obviously makes sense. How does it or does it tie into OSHA compliance? And if OSHA comes in and how does all that work?
Fortunately, I've never had to deal with OSHA.
Oh, good.
Fortunately,
Excellent.
um, I mean, we do all the standard safety compliances, safety glasses. We have our cranes inspected when needed, forklift training.
Do
But
you have regular preventive maintenance cycles?
we do all the machinery, yes. We
Okay.
got in coolant, oils, spindle oils, things like that.
Mhm.
We do preventive maintenance.
Got it. And with I kind of jumped on you there. With regard to safety, is there any regular cycle or is it just the consistency you're talking about to stay ahead of any hazards?
We just try to stay ahead of everything and kind of sub out like what we need for example, for like forklifts, etc. I bring an outside company in to inspect maintenance and everything else.
Excellent. I want to jump back to communication quickly because what we didn't talk about, Yianni, was your internal team, and I missed that. So, how many shifts do you run in the building?
We have one shift, long shift, I guess you could say, basically 6 to 6. People are in there about 6 to 6.
Okay.
Half day on Saturdays for the most part.
So during that shift in all your different departments that you've spoken about, safety, production, et cetera, yourself, what's the best method of communicating in your building, in your organization? When someone needs something, do they reach out via email? Is it phone? Is it face to face? How do you handle that?
I think for the most part, it's email or face to face at this point, occasional texting.
Hmm.
Um, our second shift is basically machines running lights out on their own when needed.
Is anyone in the building for that shift?
No, there are not. No.
Okay. Do you have remote access to the machines? How does that work?
We do not, but the machines do have the capability of actually alerting you on your phone,
Hmm.
but we haven't reached that point yet.
That's great. No, I mean that's great automation though that you've got production running. What I'm hearing you say is you have production running while no one's in the building but machines.
Correct. Yes.
Good for you. How long do they run for?
Let's say 4 or 5 hours,
So
depending on the machinery and the type of components we're manufacturing.
if an adjustment needs to be made or something doesn't go quite right, who answers that call?
So, for example, say a tool, we have tool life management. The tool is touched off with a probing system. If the tool breaks, the machine will basically stop. and it won't resume until the morning.
Okay. All right. So basically production would shut down on that particular unit.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
So
there's
no one
ways of getting around it, um, but for the most part, it would shut down.
gotcha. While we're on the topic of production, I don't know when it was, we were talking about tolerances and within a tenth of an inch. Um, who programs all of this for you and how does all that, how do you stay so precise?
Yeah. So, I mean, our business is high precision manufacturing. We're dealing with tenths of an inch, thousandths of an inch. Um, I mean, you need the qualified people and you need good machines to hold tolerance. And it really depends on the fixturing, the rigidity of the machine, a
Mhm.
lot of factors involved.
Got
And
it.
then you need the type of quality equipment to measure.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have CMMs that are basically automated inspection equipment that gets programmed and it inspects components within tenths of an inch.
Hmm.
The coordinate measure machines is what CMM stands for.
Gotcha.
And then we have gauges, pin gauges that we check precision holes with, thread gauges, inspection of internal threads, external threads.
I'm going to jump back to the industries. We mentioned energy, defense, and robotics, just a few. I know you do others as well, but do the tolerances vary from industry to industry? And if so, how do you handle that?
I mean, they can, for the most part, it, they're standard plus minus 5 thousandths of an inch. Some industries get a lot tighter when it comes to internal bores and other dimensions. But for the most part, industry to industry doesn't vary that much when it comes to tolerances. Really
Mm-hmm.
depends on the application, the component, the engineer.
Okay. So I think tolerances would, well, you tell me, would lend themselves to the quality of the product that you're delivering to. And we've talked about quality a lot with each other throughout the years.
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the quality and then specifically who decides that the quality standard is met? Yourself, the client? How does that work?
So we work from blueprints provided by the customer and also solid 3D models. Now these days, all the programming is basically done from the model. In the old days, you had to draw out from the actual blueprint, so there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot more room for error. Now everything is done with a 3D model.
Okay.
Um, and then once you start manufacturing the process, I mean, everything has to go through inspection, in process inspection on the shop floor, the final inspection, and then final visual inspection if it needs plating or painting, powder coating.
Do you do that in house? The plating, the powder coating?
No, we don't. We have
Okay.
supplies we deal with that does that. We do some mechanical assembly in house, hardware, inserts, dowel pins.
So then to jump back to quality, you've got your process in house. What happens when it's delivered to the customer? Or does the customer do any inspection in your facility before the product is delivered?
We don't have any on-site inspections.
Okay.
There's a name for that. That doesn't come to mind right now. But a lot of my customers want first article inspection reports now.
Can you talk about
Uh,
that? First article inspection?
First article inspection, basically, from the actual blueprints, every dimension has a balloon around it with a number, so you don't miss inspecting anything. And then each dimension has to get inspected, recorded, And along with that, if it goes for plating, they want process certifications. They want material certifications to see where the material actually came from. So that's part of all first article inspection.
Does that tie, you talked about raw materials, supply chain, and packaging. And when you say where the materials came from, is that this all
Yeah.
ties together?
So what mill they came from, if it's domestic material or international material, or now with the defense industries, DFARS
Okay.
material. So basically every customer now, they want traceability of material.
Understood. Does that put a strain on your system, or is that hard to
No,
do? No.
no. Material houses we buy from, I mean, they supply certified material test reports, as they call it.
Understood. So to complete the quality conversation there, when it gets to the customer, have you ever had something, I don't want to say have something kick back, or like do they review the order, and then is there a conversation with you or your team once it's delivered?
Yeah, so some customers run it through their inspection department. Other customers, uh, it's fit, form, function. So if they go
Mhm.
assemble and there's no issues, then they don't inspect. But we've had returns. It happens. We just try to service the customer, communicate immediately, try to fix the issue, not sit on the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what you really have to do in that type of business.
I
Because,
like what you said, not sit on the problem.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
because one component could hold up a much bigger issue for the customer that they need one component to ship out their product.
I want to touch back on that in a second, but I first want to ask you fit, form, function. I don't want to assume anything. I'm not in your industry, Yianni. So could you just explain that?
Yeah, so exactly kind of how it sounds.
Mhm.
If it fits into their final assembly of their components, it forms to their assembly, the functionality. If they test and there's no issues,
Mhm.
then they're not going to go back and put it through 100% inspection through CMMs, gauges, instruments of that matter.
Okay. Yep, you mentioned that too. I just didn't want to miss anything if there was more to be had or more to be discussed around that. Um, in terms of production windows, you said it might be like the part that you're producing may be part of a much larger component or structure or process, right?
Yes.
So what are let's go back to the word tolerance. What are the tolerances for schedule deviations, or are there any tolerances for that? Can you talk about scheduling and demands, how you meet them?
Yeah, sure. So depending on the workload, I mean, most customers these days want things between 6 to 8 weeks, I would say. A lot of jobs are quoted between 10 to 12 weeks, depending on outside processes such as plating, painting, material availability. So a lot of variables involved when it comes to delivery.
Okay. And is it, go ahead.
But we try, if we're late on things, we try to give a customer a heads up, let them know where we're at in the process. Always try to communicate with them. Just let it be known that this is a situation, we might be late. So they really appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I forget who I was talking to, but it was in the aerospace world, and they said there's no such thing as late. It can't be. It just,
True.
of course it can, but it's just a very, very tight window they were explaining.
Yes. I mean, it's very difficult to be 100% on time
Of course.
in
Of course.
any industry, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Um, you just walked us through basically your whole business, your whole business process, Yianni. We've learned a lot from you. What could we learn about you, about your journey? Where did you start? How did you become the president and owner of Quick?
It was a family-owned business. My father started the business in 1993, along with my mother. And I kind of always knew that I was going to get into the shop environment. Basically through high school, I went to Wentworth Institute of Technology,
Great
the one
school.
and only school I applied to because I just knew the next step was going into the shop. So early on, though, I really wasn't like involved, really. I would say even high school, I was in and out of the shop. I wasn't too involved. But once I got into college, I did a couple of semesters interning at the shop.
How'd that go?
It went well. I mean, made my life a little easier, I think, interning there. And then once I graduated college, I came on board full time. And it's been about 21 years now.
Good for you. So how was it to work for mom and dad in the beginning?
Um, it was tough. I mean, my father was tough to deal with. Old school Greek. So he wasn't easy to work with or deal with. He had his moments, but I knew it would be the best in the long run. So it was a lot of button heads, as a lot of family businesses.
Sure. Was what did you learn from his experience? How he did things.
I mean, he was always, work hard, put the time in, service the customers, be open, even with your team. Like even now, I tell the team, I mean, if you have something to say to me, say it. Everything's on the table. Be open.
Very important.
Um, because he was very straightforward and honest. I mean, he
Uh,
never beat behind the bush about anything.
I'd say
So
that's a great way to be. You're probably going to hear what you need to hear when you open communication like that with your whole team, right?
yes, yeah, I
So
tell
when
everybody just be straight up and honest. And if there's an issue, come to me and tell me about it.
do you think that supports what we talked about in the beginning around people want to work for you and with you, and that's why it's a word of mouth type of thing when new people arrive?
I think so. I think so. I tell them from day one, if you have something to say to me, come and talk to me.
It's excellent, and they do.
They do, yeah. I mean, for the most part, everyone has come and communicated with me if they had any issues, any problems, if they needed something.
It's great leadership. Good for you. Well done. So, how did you end up? I don't know if the right word is transition, but you became the president. Now you run the company. Like, when did that happen? How did it happen? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So it's kind of a slow process. Um, Unfortunately, my parents ended up getting sick not too long ago. But after college, I worked alongside my parents for several years, and then my father was kind of going back and forth to Greece, and he did not want to have anything to do dealing with customers. So I basically took that over early on, which made things a lot easier. He was still involved with the technical aspect. He was amazing at the technical aspect of the business. But I think it goes back to the team. I mean, the transition made it a lot easy with the team we had in place and the highly skilled individuals we had. It made my life a lot easier.
The team is everything. Yep. The team is definitely everything. Good story, and thank you for sharing it, Yianni. Anything else about your journey? What about hobbies? Do you have time for any hobbies?
Not too many hobbies. I have 3 young kids now, so any opportunity I have outside the business, I try to spend time with them as much as I can.
Might argue that's the best hobby.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, people say quality time with the kids, but quality time with the kids, yes, but I like having, garbage time with the kids too. Just laying around, doing nothing, hanging out.
Right. Boys, girls, how old?
Two boys, 5 and 7, 14-year-old daughter that actually recently got into Essex Tech.
Oh, congrats. Good for her.
So,
Do you think
yeah.
does she have any desire to join the business?
I think it's a possibility. I'm not forcing the issue.
Mm-hmm.
If she wants to come on board, more than welcome. I mean, my parents never really forced the issue on me.
I would say that's good.
I mean, you really have to enjoy it. I don't want them coming on board because they were forced to come on board.
Sure. I would imagine you'd want them to have a passion and a true interest.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Well, Yianni, I can't thank you enough. You're highly accomplished. You run a fantastic business. It's been a pleasure knowing you for all this time, and really appreciate you sharing with myself and the audience, your experience, your practices in your business, and hopefully they can apply some of that in their business. So definitely helpful. How would people reach you if they had additional questions?
Best way to reach me, I'd say through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yianni T Manolakos. That would probably be the best way to be reached.
Fantastic.
I really appreciate you having me, Jay. My first podcast.
I'm glad you joined us, Yianni. Like I said in the beginning, very grateful that you invested the time. Like you said, you have family, you have a 6-day-a-week business. And it was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.